This is a short video on how to populate a brand new list. This video correlates to 3.2 Populate a New List Challenge. So what we are going to do is we're told by Codio that you're going to be given a number n. And then what do they want us to do? They want us to create a list, and then we're going to use a loop and we're going to populate the list with n elements. Each element in the list is n times 10. So, or the list element times 10. And you have to be careful because they might pass in a 0. So the first thing we notice here is on line 3, as always, we get our import sys, which means we're getting in external data that Codio is sending into our script. The next thing we're going to get is we're going to get a number, and Codio is setting it equal to the variable n. It's an integer. How do we know it's an integer? Well, it's an integer because Codio is using the int function to convert the information that it's sending in. So what are the pieces and parts of this particular challenge? Well, first, we have to create a new list, a new empty list. Sorry. And then second, we have to use a for loop for n number of iterations. And then inside that loop, populate my list. So populate the list we created in step 1. Okay, so let's start with step 1. What's the syntax to create a new empty list? Well, you're going to have a variable, and I'm going to call my variable myList, and I'm going to set that equal to an open and close square bracket. The open and close square bracket is always it denotes an empty list. That's just the syntax in Python. So now I've created my empty list. So the next thing I'm being asked to do is populate the list with n elements. Each list element should be that element multiplied by 10. So this tells me I'm going to have a for loop, and I'm going to do it n times. Well, from last week we know that to do this, we're going to have a for loop, and we're going to have a helper variable. Let's just call it number. And we're going to say in range. We're going to start at 0. And we're going to end at n. Okay? Now, remember, we don't want to do n plus 1 here because that'll give us too many. Range is not inclusive of the last number, but if we start at 0, we don't want it to be inclusive of the last number. So now, inside the for loop, I know I'm inside of it, and I'm doing a block because I'm tabbed indent 1 to the right. Now I'm going to say I need to populate my list. So we'll just move this back up, and I'm going to populate my list. And how I populate my list is very simple. I use the append function for a list. I'm going to say my list dot append. I'm going to say number times n. Okay? So now let's check it. It's going to be wrong because there's no output. So your program failed, expected output is that, your output is that. Well, this is not quite my fault because Codio didn't actually tell us to print anything out. But that's what you have to do in this one. So I'm going to print my list, and I'm going to see what happens. Okay, so it tells me that my output is wrong, and my output, I did that wrong. It's supposed to be multiplied by 10. I didn't read the program right, so that's why my output is wrong. This was an error between the keyboard and the chair, and the only thing between the keyboard and the chair is me. So I was supposed to multiply it by 10 and not multiply it by n. So now I'm going to check it, and it's going to be right. The input was 8. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elements in my list, which is what I should have, and each element is the number, so starting at 0 and going to 7, multiplied by 10. So this is a short video on how to populate a new list using a for loop in Python.